Today we're going to be going over a really interesting video. This is the much anticipated, much awaited Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith DVD, bonus DVD. Tons of stuff behind here. In fact, a few years ago I covered something related to the fight scene on Mustafar, which was supposed to have so many different things. Today we won't be starting in our original fashion, whereas we will go over, the hour and a half long documentary on how George started to sit down and write Episode 3, or Episode 2, Episode 1 for the previous episodes, and all the way to completion of releasing the film, and the entire beautiful process, long process in there. Today we're going to be jumping right into the making of The Chosen One featurette. And it's something I think a lot of you would be very interested in. There's going to be a lot of Hayden Christensen explaining how he took on the role as Anakin Skywalker. A lot of George Lucas jumping in between takes from Episode 3, giving his views on how Anakin should feel in this moment to better help the actor Hayden Christensen to really embody Anakin and what he's going through in that moment and act the scene the way George sees it. A lot of people give Hayden a lot of flack. They should not. You can go watch my video titled Why Hayden Christensen Played Anakin Skywalker Perfectly. And I mean, it's got over 2 million views now in a couple of years, and it really helped a lot of people understand just how much effort Hayden put into the character and the role and why he nailed it so well. Without further ado, we're going to do lots of talking at the end. I'm not going to talk during, so let's begin. Let's get started. Very excited.
And action!
I'm not the Jedi that I should be. I want more, but I know I shouldn't.
And cut. I think you can be a little bit more stronger on that, not moody. And I think when you say, I want more, but I know I shouldn't, you can turn away. I want more, but so when you're saying, I know I shouldn't, you're turning away. I know I shouldn't. You got to remember this is one movie, and it's meant to be seen 1 through 6. So I think when you watch the actual movie in order, the story will become very clear that Anakin is the chosen one.
You refer to the prophecy of the one who will bring balance to the Force. You believe it's this boy?
And even when Anakin turns into Darth Vader, he is still the chosen one. And even when Anakin turns into Darth Vader, he is still the chosen one.
When you're a kid, he's the pinnacle of all evil. There is that mystery there, He is a man behind a mask, and up until now we didn't know who that man was. So it allows, the audience to really instill their own imagination into that character and make that evil whatever they want it to be.
Commander, tear this ship apart until you found those plans and bring me the passengers. I want them alive.
There will be more depth, though, to that evil, because it's not a conscious, choice that he's made.
Darth Vader became such an icon in the first film, Episode 4, that icon of evil sort of took over everything, much more than I intended. If it had been one movie, that wouldn't have happened. He would have been revealed to be this pathetic character at the end of the movie. But now, by adding Episodes 1, 2, and 3, people begin to see the tragedy of Darth Vader as what it was originally intended to be.
You are part of the Rebel Alliance and a traitor. Take it away!
And I like the idea that the person you thought was the villain is really the victim. And that the story is really about the villain trying to regain his humanity. It becomes really the story of Darth Vader's redemption.
The sort of transition into the dark side was where I was wanting to go from the very get-go. And I wasn't really sure at the time why I was being asked to pull back, but now I understand it's because it has to take place at very specific points in this film.
There's always this good in you at this point. The good part is saying, what am I doing? And the bad part is saying, I'm doing this for Padme, I'm doing this for us, and it'll be better for the universe, it'll be better for everybody. But there's always this little part in you is saying, what am I doing? I chose an actor who has that presence of the dark side to work with, as opposed to somebody who's very lighthearted and funny and trying to get him to have an undercurrent of dark side all the time. And Hayden's been very good at that. And so then you're very strong on that. It's almost said with not a little bit of anger, a tinge of, I will, determination and anger. I will not betray the Republic. My loyalties So that you're turning on, but it's, you know, it's like a, I will not betray the Republic. That's your rationalization for everything you've done.
Oh, Anakin, what are you gonna do?
I will not betray the Republic.
Nobody who's evil thinks of themselves as evil.
My loyalties lie with the Chancellor.
They always believe they're doing good, even though they're not. And so it's a matter of how does a person who is good turn to becoming an evil person.
Well, he is under a lot of stress, Artu.
Where we left him in episode 2, he was consumed by conflicting emotions. His love for Padme, a resentment of his Jedi obligations, you know, and the restrictions that placed on his life, a feeling that he was being held back, a lust for power, which was really magnified by his mother's death, and a fear, which is important, a fear that such an occurrence could happen again. As a very wise man once said,
Fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering.
When we find him in episode 3, he's still very much enveloped by these same tormenting feelings that, you know, the Jedi aren't affording him enough respect.
You are on this council, but we do not grant you the rank of master.
What? Very prominent, rising disillusionment.
You know, as you start complaining, there's got to be a little bit of anger behind it, a little bit of frustration.
Okay.
And action.
Sometimes I wonder what's happening to the Jedi Order. I think this war is destroying the principles of the Republic.
This war represents a failure to listen. Now you're closer to the Chancellor than anyone. Please ask him to stop the fighting and let the diplomacy resume.
Don't ask me to do that. His life has become more complicated, and this all culminates into an anger, compounded by changing relationships with both Palpatine and Obi-Wan. I mean, he begins to question the Jedi as a whole, but especially Obi-Wan. Anakin's relationship with Palpatine is one of deference and seduction. He lures Anakin into a very impressionable state.
I have rewritten, I spent the whole weekend rewriting the scene between you and Palpatine, where you turn.
Yeah?
And I've added some more to that. I've stretched it out a bit and made it a little bit, given you a little bit more to go on in terms of him pulling you in.
I hope you trust me, Anakin.
Of course.
I need your help, son.
He pulls each string with such charming yet evil precision. You wanted to see me, Chancellor?
Yes, Anakin, come closer. I have good news.
It happens once the Emperor starts to work on him and make him doubt things, make him doubt his relationship to the Jedi, make him doubt what is good in the universe. He throws out the possibility that he could keep his wife and save her from death. These are all seduction things, which causes a great deal of turmoil in Anakin.
He had such a knowledge of the dark side, he could even keep the ones he cared about from dying.
Is it possible to learn this power?
Not from a Jedi.
This is where he finally succumbs to the influence of the devil.
Anakin has turned to the dark side.
The Obi-Wan Anakin fight is an amazing battle. I've already been knighted, if you will, Darth Vader. Darth Vader's fighting style is much more aggressive and much more brutal than Anakin's. I think that the end fight where Anakin and Obi-Wan try to resolve their differences, Obi-Wan comes out with the better hand. But I think that's a result or, derivative of Anakin's emotions and not being able to focus them and control them, which is just, the root of Anakin's inabilities.
You underestimate my power! Don't try it!
He's got to jump down, and we could do it in two pieces.
Okay.
He's got to jump down, and as he comes over, he's got to cut him.
Yeah, and then you've got to go.
Then we can do the second piece where he lands and rolls down.
Okay.
You want to do that, or you want to have a stunt guy do that?
I'll do it if you'd like me to.
That's up to you.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, it's kind of rolling sideways in the dirt.
Well, if you think you'll see my face and it's worth having me do it, then
Probably.
I'm happy to do it, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take 4. Be Mark.
And action!
Don't ask me, Anakin! Said you would destroy the Sith, not join them!
And cut! You do that little turn and you look back. If we move more of it as you were going up the hill, so that if he does, when he bursts into flames and stuff, it's not like you're standing right next to him. It's important in the end that you see the physical transformation of Anakin into this burnt-up crisp, because that's the suffering he had to live with for the rest of his life.
To me, I really wanted to show that there was some severe damage. You know, there was a lot of stuff, a lot of bad stuff had happened to him, and that had kind of formed him. You know, Vader's experiences have formed him into what he becomes. We get to do stuff that I've basically been imagining since I was a kid.
So this is the burnt Anakin stroke Vader makeup on Hayden Christensen, and this is what's going to bridge the transformation between Anakin and Darth Vader.
Oh my God!
Look at this.
Oh God!
What's really freaky is that your eyebrows and your eyes, that you're in there. It's particularly nice.
That's a scene all the fans are waiting for.
Yeah.
For him to come out of that pit looking like this.
Yeah.
Another prosthetic was my first time, having to, be burned.
Slide down this way. Keep coming down, and then you're going to put your feet up here. Yeah, up there on that. Set. And action! We know from Return of the Jedi what he looks like, so we use that as our model, that he's been all burned up in a volcano. And that was in, say, the original backstory. I felt it was important that we actually see that happen, so that we could see the consequences of these bad things that he did.
Anakin, you're breaking my heart. You're going down a path I can't follow.
Because of Obi-Wan.
Because of what you've done. What you plan to do.
He forces his friends to turn against him, which is heartbreaking.
You were the chosen one!
Obviously, one of the key elements in Episode 3 is that we see him actually put into the Iron Lung. The mask finally close on him, that now he's an artificial man, but we know what's inside of it. And I think it's a new part to 4, 5, and 6 that people haven't seen yet. The man in the suit comes into being a more personalized character than what he was originally.
I'm aware that there was a fair amount of hysteria on set when I first emerged as Darth Vader.
You look just like Darth Vader.
It's quite something. I can't even necessarily articulate how it made me feel.
Lord Vader, can you hear me?
And that part was very empowering.
Yes, Master.
A memory that won't leave me in the near future.
The prophecy is that Anakin will bring balance to the Force and destroy the Sith. He becomes Darth Vader. Darth Vader does become the hero. Darth Vader does destroy the Sith, meaning himself and the Emperor. He does it because he is redeemed by his son.
So, you have accepted the truth.
I've accepted the truth that you were once Anakin Skywalker, my father.
That name no longer has any meaning for me.
It is the name of your true self you've only forgotten. I know there is good in you.
So the prophecy is true. And by doing that, he redeems himself and goes from being Darth Vader back to being Anakin again.
You were right about me. Tell your sister. You were right.
Everybody thought of Darth Vader as this big evil guy that, had no heart. He was just evil. But in the end, it's not that at all. And here's a guy who has lost everything.
He believes that he's the chosen one. He's not doing wrong things knowing that it's having a negative impact. So there's that sort of naivety to him now that wasn't there before. And it makes him more human in a lot of ways.
Probably one of my favorite featurettes or webisodes or whatever it is from episode 3's bonus DVD. A lot of things to take away from it, man. One of the main things is, well, it's not from here, but I can use my knowledge from the books and stuff to throw this in there. So Vader has to go through, well, Anakin has to go through this massive transition. Sure, he gets chopped up, sure, he burns up and all that stuff, but there's more to it than that. The guy is tortured beyond just his soul of losing his wife and betraying his friends and this and that. And, you know, losing his wife to the idea that he could save her. Literally, that's the reason he lost her. And then, you know, so there's so much more to it. There's the physicalities that a lot of people don't know, which Sidious designed specifically so that he would suffer. A lot of his suffering came from, of course, internal, but a lot of it came from external as well, such as his helmet had a million different needles that would just pinprick him and go into his head and connect to his nervous system. There was a long tube that went all the way down his trachea because he could only whisper like this. He couldn't really talk. He had to undergo so much maintenance with his body because his skin would constantly release this necrotic flesh, and it had to be scrubbed by machines, by droids. So once all of his robotic limbs were taken off him and he was just a stump that was hanging in the middle of the room, all these droids came by and started scrubbing all of the dead flesh off of him. The smell, the feeling, everything was just putrid. It was absolutely horrible. He couldn't sleep because the lights were so bright on his central console in his chest that it would light up the room and it would constantly be blinking. That, in conjunction with the fact that he made this loud breathing noise whenever he wasn't in his chamber where he could take his helmet off, delivered tons of insomnia. Then there was the phantom pain of losing his limbs, and the actual cybernetics that were digging into his flesh and pushing in and really hurting him. But herein lies the power, is that he would use all of these discomforts, emotional, physical, all that stuff, to really harness his dark side powers and really own his emotions. Because as we saw in the featurette here, Anakin lost to Obi-Wan not because he was not capable or wasn't powerful enough or wasn't good enough with the lightsaber and the Force. It was his own lack of ability to be able to control his powers and his emotions. Now, something else that's really cool about this is that Darth Vader's fighting style is much more aggressive than Anakin's. I didn't know that. I thought he's just using Form 5 Damso consistently. It's the same form that Anakin used, same fighting style. But I guess once you tap into the dark side, it's much more aggressive, much more powerful. You just turn it up to a 10, basically, or 100 in this case. Also, I want you to take note of the part at the end where George says that Anakin did indeed fulfill the prophecy. The prophecy did come true in the end, and all because Luke, who is the catalyst, he wasn't the main protagonist of the story. He was the catalyst that brought Anakin outside of Darth Vader once again. Tons of really fine details and tidbits, and you can see how much care and precise attention Hayden Christensen put into his character of Anakin Skywalker. So all the flack that he gets, all the disrespect and the rude comments, they shouldn't exist because this man really did a good job in portraying who Anakin Skywalker is, and it's up to George Lucas's standards, and as George says he's doing a really great job with that, then we can't say anything. His acting was on par, and a lot of people like to dog that and stuff too, but you can't because, once again, George Lucas liked it for his character. But I will go even further. Hayden went as far as trying purposefully to be a bit monotone because of two things. The first, which I know is a fact, is because Darth Vader always sounded like that. And I've said this many times. Yes, my master. No, my master. What are we going to do? This is the way Vader sounded, so Anakin had to talk with this cadence at times to be able to match that when he went into the suit and became, James Earl Jones's voice. The second reason is a theory of my own. Dude, you gotta realize Anakin is extremely stressed out. He's being torn apart. On one side, he wants to be loyal to the Jedi. He's always wanted to be a Jedi, and that's his family. But on the other side, they disrespect him. They don't really care about him. They don't give him the attention and the respect and the ranking that he deserves. How would you feel that the people that you are so loyal to are really responsible for A, holding your powers back, B, causing your mother to die? Because if they have only just listened to you, then you would have been able to actually go and help her and save her, and she'd be alive today. Which, ultimately, ironically, led to his turn to the dark side, because he's like, well, screw these guys. What the hell? I mean, I've lost everything now. I'm not going to lose Padme now next. And that was something that he always said, is that I'm not going to lose you too. He was always absolutely obsessed with being powerful. He blamed himself and his lack of power, in not being able to save his mother. I wasn't strong enough to save you, Mom. That's Anakin coming down on himself because he didn't have the power. Why didn't he have the power? Because the Jedi held him back in his mind. And in a sense, they kind of did, dude. I mean, if they granted him the rank of Master, he would have had access to the restricted section. Now, the restricted section was like, it just held everything. All the Sith holocrons, Sith artifacts, scrolls, information, books, the lore of the Jedi and the Sith. Everything he needed to know to be able to search for Darth Plagueis once Palpatine piqued his interest with this mysterious master who could cheat death. All of these things add up, and then summate all of that into one moment where Palpatine is going to die and he's going to lose the ability to save his wife. It's basically like saying, okay, I'm going to kill Padme, or Mace Windu's got to go. He made his choice, man. You know, so it's not that he was so loyal to Sidious. He was loyal to his emotions and his needs and his wants. And I think that's what makes Anakin such a flawed character and so relatable, and makes his arc as this young boy who has these starry-eyed dreams and visions to become this Jedi, this protector, this savior, so noble, this policeman of the galaxy. Later goes on to become a criminal, later goes on to destroy the whole galaxy, do the opposite of what he set out to do because of the training and the guidance, lack of guidance that he had along the way. Now, George and Dave have said, well, I know Dave has said, that if Qui-Gon had been there for Anakin, he would have been the father figure that Anakin really needed. And so that's the reason I think Hayden Christensen played Anakin so well. Why Anakin Skywalker is such an interesting character, and Darth Vader is such an interesting character, and this is a lot of the things, these are a lot of the reasons that people don't understand when it comes to Vader, and why I think he's such a dynamic and cool character, and so relatable, because he is flawed, and every single one of us, me, you, watching, everyone in the comments, we're all flawed humans. No one is born perfect, no one dies perfect. We're all messed up, we all got issues, and it's life's journey that really teaches us how to deal with these issues, and if we're going to deal with them, if we're going to face them, and we're going to make them better, if we're going to make ourselves better or not, or we're going to give in to the temptations of the dark side and follow down this path that Padme cannot follow. So anyways, that's what I wanted to say about Anakin. I think it's a really interesting featurette documentary, and I'll catch you guys in the next one, which will be Obi-Wan, and then Sidious, and then we'll go through the whole shebang. Catch you later.